When we think AI security, we usually picture these super complex models, right? Maybe some crazy cyber attacks. But what if the biggest risk isn't in the fancy algorithm at all? What if it's hiding in plain sight? We're going to dive into this because the real weak spot, it often starts with the most basic thing, the data.
And this really just hits the nail on the head. AI models don't just fail out of nowhere. They fail because of the data. Think about it. If your training data is insecure or biased or just a total mess, you're basically planting these little time bombs, and they don't go off right away. They wait until the AI is out in the real world, making actual decisions, and then you see the privacy leaks, the compliance nightmares. The whole thing just falls apart.
So that really begs the question, right? Where does AI risk really start? If we're serious about building AI we can actually trust, we gotta stop staring at the shiny new models and get back to basics. We have to start at the source, and that's exactly what we're gonna do. We'll break down 3 super important foundational steps to get this right. All right, so step 1. It all starts here. You've got to inventory your data. I mean, it's just common sense, isn't it? You wouldn't build a house without knowing what kind of wood you're using, or if the foundation is solid. Well, it's the exact same idea with AI. You absolutely have to know what you're working with before you even start thinking about building a model.
So this inventory process, it's really 2 main things. First, you do a full-on inventory. That means you map out everything. Where's the data from? Who owns it? Are there any weird licensing rules we need to know about? And then, part 2 is the readiness assessment. This is where you roll up your sleeves and really check the quality. Is this data actually usable? Is it clean? Is it consistent? Or is it full of junk like duplicates and noise?
Okay, so you're probably wondering, what happens if I just don't do this? Well, let's look at this financial firm. They tried to build a fraud detection model, but they used this messy cocktail of data. Some of it was old, some was duplicated, and some of it, well, they probably shouldn't have been using it at all. And what happened? The model's predictions were all over the place, totally unreliable. And worse, they got into serious trouble during an audit. All of that could have been avoided with a simple inventory checkup up front. And look, this isn't just some made-up story. The Clearview AI case is a perfect and kind of scary real-world example of this. They scraped billions of images from social media, from all over the web, with no consent, no validation. And it turned into a complete legal and regulatory disaster for them. This is the key takeaway here. Your training data can go from being your biggest asset to your biggest liability, just like that, if you don't know exactly what you're dealing with. Okay, on to step 2, and this one is huge. It's all about protecting privacy by sanitizing sensitive information. Because here's the thing about AI models. They have this creepy ability to memorize things. And if there's personal data in their training set, they can accidentally just spit it back out. That's why protecting privacy isn't an afterthought. It has to be baked in from the very start. The official term for this is data sanitization. Basically, it's the process of scrubbing your data clean. You use techniques like tokenization or masking to get rid of any personally identifiable information. You'll hear people call it PII. We're talking names, emails, you name it. The whole point is to make sure that private stuff never, ever gets embedded into the model. This is absolutely critical for things like GDPR compliant. Let me give you another really clear example. Imagine an HR department. They decide to train a model to screen candidates, so they feed it a bunch of raw resumes, full of names, emails, phone numbers, all that sensitive stuff. Well, what do you think happened? When they started testing it, the model just started blurting out the names of real employees. It's a textbook privacy breach and totally preventable. And don't think this is just a problem for smaller companies. This happens at the absolute highest levels. Remember back in 2023 when a bug in ChatGPT accidentally exposed some users' chat titles and even parts of their payment info? What's so wild about that case is that it wasn't on purpose. It was just a bug. It just goes to show you even unintentional exposure is a massive risk. The lesson couldn't be clearer. PII, sensitive user data, has absolutely no business being in your AI pipelines. Full stop. Okay, so that brings us to our third and final step, and it's a big one, checking for hidden bias. Here's the simple truth. An AI is only as good and only as fair as the data you feed it. So if your data has historical biases baked into it, or it's just really unbalanced, guess what? Your AI isn't just going to learn those biases, it's going to amplify them. And you can see the domino effect right here. You start with biased data, and that leads straight to unfair decisions. And what does that do? Well, it kills your model's accuracy out in the wild. And at the same time, it sends your compliance and ethical risks through the roof. It's just a total lose-lose-lose situation. Take a look at this healthcare example.
A provider built a model to help schedule appointments. The problem was, most of their training data came from city hospitals, so the AI just learned what it was shown. It started to deprioritize patients from rural areas, not because anyone programmed it to be malicious, but just because those patients were barely represented in the data. The model was just reflecting the skewed reality it was taught.
And of course, we have to talk about the infamous Amazon AI hiring tool. This thing was trained on 10 years of the company's own hiring data, and historically, that data was heavily skewed towards men. So the AI did what AIs do. It learned the pattern. It actually started penalizing resumes that had words like women's in them. It's probably the most famous example of how unchecked historical data will absolutely create a discriminatory AI, no question about it. Okay, so let's recap. We've talked about the big three: inventory your data, sanitize it, and check it for bias. Those are the how-to steps. But now let's zoom out for a second and talk about the why. Let's connect these technical details to the big picture, building AI that actually works and that people can trust. Because when you get this right, when you really govern your data well, the payoff is enormous. I mean, you're drastically cutting down your security and privacy risks, your model's accuracy and fairness go way up, compliance becomes so much easier, but the real prize? You build trust. You build long-term trust with your users, and that right there is the only way you get sustainable, successful AI.
There's this analogy that I think just perfectly sums it all up. If the AI is the brain, then the training data is its DNA. And just like real DNA, it determines everything that brain will become, all its strengths, its weaknesses, its hidden biases. So securing that DNA, that's not just a tech problem. It's a fundamental ethical responsibility. So let's leave it with this one final thought. Real AI security, it doesn't start with firewalls or fancy encryption you slap on at the end. No way. It starts way, way earlier. It starts with the disciplined, sometimes tedious, but absolutely critical work of governing your data from day one. Because at the end of the day, you can only build strong, trustworthy AI on one thing: a foundation of clean, secure, and fair data.